Hey guys, Sebastian here with another Cardano video. This time we're going over staking pools, and mostly we're covering an incentive problem. This is to say, how can a group of people incentivize users to sign up to their pool? Okay, so if you think about what is a pool essentially? Well, there will be some user over here, and they will be sending, they'll not be sending ADA to the pool, they'll be sending their, delegating their rights to create a block to the pool. Okay. So a user will delegate their right to create a block to the pool, and in exchange the protocol guarantees, the protocol guarantees that they'll get some sort of return in the form of ADA. But some pools may want to incentivize users to sign up to the pool beyond just this protocol built-in reward. So how would they do about that? How would they go about that? One way they could do it is some sort of per user reward on sign up, right? So you sign up to our pool, you'll get a ticket, okay? And this ticket will maybe be redeemable for a graphic card, maybe redeemable for, ledger, whatever, some sort of physical item. Okay, well you can't just give the ticket on sign up, because otherwise somebody who has a lot of ADA might split up their ADA into multiple accounts, right? So a single person becomes 5 people, and now they have 5 times as many tickets despite having the same amount of ADA. The problem with this is that to do this kind of attack, you need to, first of all, pay the transaction fee to split up your ADA into multiple accounts. And then you also need to pay the fee to sign up to the pool. There's a fee built in the protocol whenever you sign up to the pool, and so you also have to pay that 5 times. So the question is, will people actually do this? Do they really care enough? And I thought about it, and here's kind of what I thought about. I mean, if you win a pool, if you win one of these raffles and you have a lot of money in the pool, you'll probably not want to reveal your identity, right? So you imagine somebody wins the account, and the person who won the raffle has $100,000 worth of ADA in their account. Probably they'll not want to reveal who they are, let alone their address where they live, to receive this reward. More so because if they're rich, they're less likely to care about some a few $100 reward, because as a proportion of their entire net value, it is fairly small. If they do wish to participate in this raffle anyways, they can split their ADA into small accounts. That way their chances of winning does not change much, but they can still pretend to be poor. So by pretending to be poor, they will not be as shy to reveal their address. One thing you can do instead is, instead of giving the ticket on pool sign up, you allocate tickets based on how much ADA they've staked, right? If you represent 1% of the pool, you have a 1% chance of winning. But this doesn't really solve the problem, because all these problems of sharing your real address doesn't really apply. One way you can get around this problem entirely is just to do some sort of like a Twitter competition, right? If you follow us on Twitter, then you'll get a ticket on Twitter, and we're bypassing the entire blockchain, and people are less likely to make more Twitter accounts, because it's kind of more tedious to do than blockchain addresses. Those are much easier to create. You can imagine to bypass this address issue, they'll give out just more ADA or some sort of other cryptographic asset instead, right? So just keep in mind, when I say you share your address, I don't only mean you have to share your physical address, but you also have to identify which address belongs to you on the blockchain. And therefore, if you keep this address, then at least one person knows who's making these transactions. This is not that bad with delegation, because delegation, as you may know, is separate from the actual address. You have a different delegation address compared to your real ADA address. So it's not that bad, but there's still like some sort of privacy issues there. And so we can try and tackle this problem by only having to share the ADA address and not your real address, by giving the rewards as cryptographic value. Okay, this is possibly more ADA in other ways. One thing you may be tempted to do is do some sort of like a temporary fee removal, right? So you can say like for the duration of 1 week, all our pool fees will be 0. So as you may know, in the protocol, whenever you sign up a pool, every pool will have a fee. So for example, a pool may have a 1% fee. They'll take 1% of all the block rewards. A different pool may have a 2% fee, 3% fee, you know, it depends on the pool, right? And one thing they can do to encourage users is to say, like, for this short period of time, we have no fee, please come sign up to our pool. The problem with this is that how often are you allowed to change your fees, right? So you can imagine if we say you're allowed to change your fees at any time to any value, then some pool may jack up the pool fee without telling its users, right? So you imagine one day it's 1%, and suddenly they put it 20% and hope nobody notices, and the time it takes for people to notice and remove themselves from the pool owners will have made enough money that they don't really care anymore. So you have kind of two choices. One is you can say, okay, you're just never allowed to change your fees. Once you set up your pool, if you want to change the fees, you have to stop your pool, create a new pool with different fee structure. So one way to do it. The other one is we can build into the protocol a way to do these like a temporary free fees. So your pool can have two settings, regular fee and then 0%, and people can kind of like a toggle on and off, or like some sort of way to have temporary dips in fees, but can never be increased past their initial setting. But this is kind of like one problem with these removal of fees. Back to our sign-up problem. So one problem that also exists is that if your sign-up reward is greater than the sign-up fee, then users are tempted to repeat this kind of triangle pattern. So you can imagine and say, okay, if you sign up to my pool, I will give you 5 ADA, okay? And so if 5 ADA is more than the fee to sign up to the pool originally, the fee built into the protocol, a user will sign up, collect their reward, leave the pool, and then just sign up again. And they'll just continue this process until eventually the pool runs out of money. One way the pool can combat this is to say, okay, we will only give you the reward if you stake with us long enough for the pool to make the money back, such that the pool breaks even. So you imagine if the pool reward, the reward for joining the pool is 5 ADA. You can only claim that 5 ADA after you being part of the pool has made the pool the equivalent of 5 ADA. That way, even if you back out of the pool, at least the pool has broken even. They've made no money, but they've also lost no money. That's one thing they can do. It doesn't solve the problem entirely, because at worst case, they've broken even. They've made no money out of you. But it's some sort of like a compromise between the systems. But there's a problem with this also, which is how do you know where to send this reward to, right? So if I say, okay, if you join my pool, I'll give you 5 ADA. But where do you send this 5 ADA to, right? As I mentioned, the delegation address is different from your actual ADA address. So you wouldn't know as a pool owner who to send the rewards to. So I make a proposal here, which is to say, when you're doing staking, you should be allowed to send metadata associated with delegation, right? And as Charles mentioned, oftentimes the metadata associated with a transaction is extremely important, especially if you're trying to be compliant to various financial rules, right? And if you have metadata, inside the metadata you can specify your actual address if you decide to. So with this system, if I want to opt into this pool reward, then I can say, okay, here's my actual address, please send any rewards to this address. If I don't want to opt into the pool rewards, I can just send nothing and join the pool as is, right? An extension to this proposal is what if we allow smart contracts to handle pool rewards, right? So if you want to have custom pool rewards, this strange system that you've developed yourself, and bypass the system built in the protocol, what if you could have a smart contract handle it, right? So when the user signs up, they'll send their right, they'll delegate their right to create blocks, plus they'll send some metadata for the reward address, and the pool will in turn give them back the ADA based on the protocol reward, plus any bonus from this smart contract that gets executed. Okay, so what are the problems with this proposal? I mean, before we go into problems, sorry, I'll try and motivate this more. So I gave you guys an example with a sign-up problem, right? You might remember the sign-up problem here. If we don't have smart contracts, it's up to the pool to kind of verify all this is true, right? The pool has to remember after, 1 week, oh, right, I have to send ADA to this person. If they forget, it's not good for both the pool because then people lose confidence in them. It's not good for the user because they don't get their benefit, right? It's not really an ideal system. You want this to all be automated and all be trustless, right? This is one motivation for the smart contracts. The other motivation for the smart contracts I thought of was airdrops, okay? If you've ever used Ethereum, you know that airdrops are extremely common, right? But the problem with airdrops is that they're very expensive to do. The reason why is if you don't know what an airdrop is, essentially, you start an ICO, okay, and you have a bunch of tokens, and you want to give out the tokens to a bunch of people to encourage people to onboard onto your platform, right? But you cannot you cannot cheaply send your airdrop to everybody that uses Ethereum because every transaction has a cost, right? So some people do some sort of you'll receive coins proportional to how many Ethereum you own with some sort of cutoff, right? If you own more than 1 Ethereum in your account, and then you'll get some airdrop tokens, otherwise you get nothing. Another thing people do is have some sort of proof of community engagement, right? If you've retweeted or if you followed the ICO, then they'll do an airdrop to you, right? Along with everybody else who's been following the ICO on social media, right? So people have these ways of narrowing the amount of people they will send tokens to during the airdrops. Okay, and what if Cardano can simplify airdrops and make them a lot more common and a lot cheaper, right? This is a benefit for ADA because it will encourage more ICOs on the Cardano platform, right? So how would this new system work? Okay, imagine you've got a developer over here and they've created their new token, okay, for whatever reason. And either they've done an ICO or they haven't done an ICO, doesn't really matter. They want to distribute out tokens. Okay, so they take their tokens and they send them to the pool owners. Okay, the owner of the pool looks at the token, decides, is this a real project? Do we actually care about it? If so, they'll take part of the profit for themselves as a way to fund the pool, right? This will be a new funding mechanism for pools to make money. And with the remaining tokens, they will put them in the pool and distribute it out to the users, right? Anybody who added metadata as a payout address will now get some tokens from this airdrop. There's a few problems with this. One is you need some sort of immutability on smart contracts, right? So in Ethereum, theoretically, the smart contracts are immutable, but a lot of people program these versioning systems, these delegation systems into the smart contract to allow for this updating. And we can't really allow for that because if a pool does this, you can imagine one day they stealthily change the smart contract such that now it redirects all profits back to themselves, and by the time people notice, they'll have made a lot of money, right? So we can't allow this. It's too much of a central point of failure. So how would you make sure that pool owners will not try and cheat this protocol? One thing you could do is that we have a single contract for the pool, and all the smart contract does is it looks at all tokens it owns and automatically sends them out, right? And then if you as owner of a new project want to do an airdrop, all you got to do is put the coins directly into the smart contract, and that will be given to the users. Okay, so the problem with this is that the way the protocol works is that transaction fees grow as the size of the transaction increases. And what I mean by size of transactions, I mean the number of bytes in the transaction. So if you imagine there's only one airdrop going on, it's not too expensive, right? You're doing a single transaction per user. If there's 2 airdrops going on at the same time, you don't have quite twice the amount of data, but for every user, you'll have to send 2 different tokens, right? And if there's 3 airdrops going on, you'll have to send 3 different tokens. and you may end up with some sort of like a airdrop pollution, which is that there's so many airdrops going on that one, is really expensive to do, and two, all these end users end up with all these tokens they don't care about, right? They'll open up their wallet and notice they have hundreds and hundreds of ERC20 tokens or whatnot, and they don't even know what these projects are, if they're actually valuable, and all this kind of stuff. So if you have a single contract that distributes rewards, there's going to need to be some way such that if you want to do an airdrop, you have to put a certain amount of money into this contract that pays for the transaction fee to send your tokens out to everybody part of the pool. But in a way that's kind of like doesn't solve the problem, right? Because the problem we had originally was it's expensive for the owner of the token to send all the transactions, right? So it doesn't really solve the problem if we end up with this. So how do we really solve this, right? And that's kind of a question I'd like other people to think about. And if you know some clever solutions, how we can tackle these problems, I'd be glad to hear it. But one thing I did think of was something I call pool reward blocks. Okay, so the problem, remember, we're having is that the gas fee is fairly large. But if you remember the way Cardano works, the gas fees get paid to the block creators, right? And under the current implementation of Ouroboros, you know ahead of time which slots belong to you, right? So you imagine if you're a large pool, say you own 10% of the network, there may be times where you have two blocks in a row, right? So if you imagine this is the blockchain up here, there's going to be a block A and a block B, which both are blocks that your pool will create, followed by the rest of the blockchain. So what you can do is, whenever you see this happening, which you can see ahead of time because in Ouroboros, every epoch, all the slots for that epoch are already decided ahead of time. So the pool will know, like, if you're over here, the pool already knows this block is coming up. So it can announce to everybody, hey guys, slot number blah blah will be a reward block, get ready to receive your airdrop rewards. Once we get to block A, the pool will make this large transaction that involves a fairly large gas fee to send these airdrops to everybody. And then in block B, everybody received this rewards, and the pool essentially just paid themselves in gas, right? So they now recoup all the gas costs they paid. I mean, not all of it, but some of the gas costs they paid. So this will obviously not reduce the cost to zero because there's other costs associated with transactions, but it'll lower the price to a certain extent, right? And this may be the best we can do. But the problem is this doesn't work in Ouroboros Preis. So you know that Ouroboros, the current version running, is the first version, but there'll be new versions of the protocol coming out in the following years. And in Ouroboros, one of the properties you have is that you know ahead of time which slots belong to you, and you know they belong exclusively to you. However, in Ouroboros Preis, you know ahead of time that a block will belong to you, but it may not only belong to you. There may be some other people who also own this block. So depending on how this is implemented, it may block this concept of pool reward blocks. So that's one thing to think about. So as I said, the benefits of this proposal is if we implement this, then Cardano has better airdrop story than Ethereum, and therefore it'll encourage ICOs and project creators to come onto Ethereum and do airdrops, right? Which is a positive for us. Another benefit is that it incentivizes pools to invest in ICOs, right? You can imagine if a pool wants to incentivize users to sign up, they can look at new ICOs on Cardano and strategically invest. Say like, oh, we really think this project will take off. They'll buy tokens when they're really cheap during the ICO stage, and then later on in the future, they'll say like, hey, thank you for being part of the pool. Here's an airdrop to people from our pool for this token, right? As a way to incentivize people to sign up. And I think this will create a better ecosystem where the pool owners play an active role in funding different projects on the Cardano platform, right? And I think this is a plus. The problem is that pools running smart contracts has kind of a surface of attack, right? As I mentioned before, you have to stop them from being selfish. You have to find a way to block them from changing the contract such that they earn all the rewards. You also have to make sure that the smart contract they use has no security holes, right? You imagine if a large pool creates a smart contract and there's a logic error in there. So there's like some sort of bug and it gets hacked. This is a really big deal, right? So this is also something that, you know, this larger surface attack is a real problem. But one thing to think about is it possible to, instead of building it into the protocol, for just whenever there's a block like this, instead of the smart contract running as part of the protocol, the pool will add a new transaction to the mempool during block A. So if you don't know, like as you're creating a block, you can add transactions if you're the block creator, right? So when we get to block A, the pool creates a new transaction, adds it to the mempool, and adds it to the block, which this transaction triggers the smart contract, which creates the same behavior. The problem with this is if a pool creates a smart, triggers the smart contract themselves, the smart contract has to somehow be able to access the metadata that we specified earlier for this specific pool, right? So that would mean inside the smart contract programming language, there has to be a way to iterate over the metadata associated with a given pool. And I'm not sure if we will support this kind of feature. Is it good to have this kind of feature? Is it safe to have this kind of feature? All this kind of stuff. So having the system may work, but it may involve some additional considerations for privacy, security, and all this kind of stuff. But it is another way to implement this proposal. And that's about all I had for this proposal. Hopefully you guys learned a lot by watching this video. If you have any thoughts on how to solve this incentive problem, please comment, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd love to get some community feedback on this. If you enjoy this kind of video, let me know. I'd love to make more of these videos where instead of talking about the technical updates, I do these more like idea sharing. If you want to follow my updates as I come up with these, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Patreon, I'm on all the platforms, so you can find me on there, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.